The ice core drill whirred to a stop, its sharp tip glistening with ancient frost. Dr. Naomi Winters pulled back her protective goggles, squinting at the cylindrical sample they'd just extracted from 3 kilometers beneath the Greenland ice sheet. Something was wrong. After 15 years of studying glacial deposits, she knew what ice should look like at these depths. This wasn't it. "Harrison, are you seeing this?" She called to her research assistant, who was logging data at the monitoring station. The young scientist looked up from his tablet, adjusting his thermal suit as he made his way across the platform. The core sample pulsed with a faint violet luminescence. Impossible. Ice didn't glow, and certainly not with this rhythm, like a sleeping heartbeat. Naomi's scientific mind raced through possible explanations: bioluminescent bacteria, mineral deposits, equipment malfunction. But each theory felt hollow against the evidence before her. "We need to get this to the lab," she said, carefully securing the sample in its protective casing. "And Harrison, let's keep this between us for now." The research station, a cluster of reinforced modules perched on the endless white expanse, hummed with activity as other scientists went about their regular studies of climate change and geological history. None of them knew that in Lab Module C, Naomi and Harrison were about to rewrite everything they thought they knew about Earth's past. Under the sterile light of the analysis chamber, the core sample's glow intensified. Spectrometer readings made no sense. The energy signature didn't match any known element. As Naomi adjusted the containment field, her hand brushed against the surface of the ice. A jolt of electricity shot through her body, and suddenly her mind was flooded with images. Vast cities beneath crystalline domes, beams of pure energy moving through geometric patterns, and a sense of desperate urgency. "Dr. Winters." Harrison's voice seemed distant. "You're bleeding." She touched her nose, fingers coming away red. The vision had lasted only seconds, but she knew with terrifying certainty that they'd found something beyond human understanding. As she steadied herself against the lab bench, the monitoring equipment began to screech in alarm. The ice was melting, but not from heat. It seemed to be dissolving from within, revealing a latticework of iridescent crystals that defied known crystal formation patterns. At their center sat an object no larger than a tennis ball, its surface covered in shifting symbols that seemed to move of their own accord. "Harrison, get me a secure line to the Institute, and find out if anyone else has reported unusual readings in the past 24 hours. Naomi couldn't take her eyes off the artifact. Its pulse had synchronized with her own heartbeat, creating a connection she couldn't explain, but somehow understood was irreversible. The next few hours passed in a blur of frantic activity. Teams of researchers were redirected, equipment was requisitioned, and the entire wing was placed under quarantine protocols. But it was the message from the Institute's quantum physics department that confirmed Naomi's worst fears. Similar energy signatures had been detected at research stations across the Arctic Circle, all activating simultaneously. As night fell over the research station, Naomi sat alone in the lab, watching the artifact through reinforced glass. The symbols on its surface had resolved into a repeating pattern that nagged at the edges of her consciousness. She'd seen them before, in her vision, but they meant something more. Something ancient. Something waiting. Her satellite phone buzzed. A message from Dr. Raj Patel, the Institute's leading quantum physicist. He was already on his way, along with a team of specialists. But as Naomi stared at the artifact, she wondered if they were already too late. The pattern of symbols had changed again, and this time she could almost read them. They weren't a warning. They were a key, and humanity had just turned it. The military transport plane cut through the Arctic night, carrying Dr. Raj Patel and his hastily assembled team toward the Greenland research station. He studied the preliminary data on his tablet for the 100th time, searching for patterns in the impossible readings. 20 years of quantum physics research hadn't prepared him for this. "The energy signature is unlike anything we've encountered," he explained to Commander Diana Rodriguez, who sat across from him in the cargo hold. "It's as if the laws of thermodynamics simply don't apply." The commander's expression remained neutral, but her fingers tightened on her tactical tablet. "Just tell me if it's a threat, Doctor." "That's what worries me," Raj admitted. "We don't know enough to even assess the threat level." The plane touched down on the station's ice runway amid swirling snow. Dr. Winters met them at the entrance, dark circles under her eyes suggesting she hadn't slept since her discovery. "The pattern changed again," she said without preamble, "and the energy output has doubled in the last hour." Inside Lab Module C, Raj found himself face to face with something that shouldn't exist. The artifact hovered in its containment field, its crystalline surface rippling like liquid metal. The symbols flowing across its surface made his eyes hurt, not from their brightness, but from something deeper, as if his brain refused to process what it was seeing. "Have you tried spectral analysis?" he asked, setting up his own equipment. "The results keep shifting," Harrison replied from his monitoring station. "It's like it's adapting to our attempts to study it." Naomi stepped closer to the containment field. "There's something else. When I touched the ice earlier, I saw things, cities, beings, knowledge that felt ancient and vast." Raj's instruments suddenly spiked. "The energy output just jumped again. It's responding to you, Dr. Winters." Before anyone could react, the artifact pulsed with blinding intensity. Every electronic device in the lab erupted with static. Through the chaos, Naomi felt that same connection she'd experienced before, but stronger now. Images flooded her mind. Vast machines buried beneath ice sheets across the planet. A network of devices waiting to be awakened. "It's not alone," she gasped. "There are more of them." Commander Rodriguez was already on her satellite phone, calling in reports of similar energy signatures detected in Antarctica, Siberia, and the Canadian Arctic. The artifact's pulse grew stronger, more insistent, like a beacon calling out to its siblings. "We need to shut it down," Rodriguez ordered. "Wait," Raj interrupted, studying his readings. "These energy patterns, they're not random. It's transmitting data, massive amounts of it. And," he paused, his face pale, "something is transmitting back." The temperature in the lab plummeted suddenly, frost crystallizing on every surface. The artifact's symbols began moving faster, their patterns shifting into new configurations that burned themselves into the observers' minds. Naomi stumbled, her nose bleeding again, but this time the visions were clearer. "They were waiting," she whispered. "All this time, buried in the ice, they were waiting for us to reach a certain level of technological advancement. To be ready." "Ready for what?" Rodriguez demanded. The answer came not in words, but in a surge of understanding that hit everyone in the room simultaneously. The artifacts weren't weapons or tools. They were keys to a door that humanity had been unknowingly approaching for millennia. And now that door was beginning to open. Alarms blared throughout the research station as similar reports flooded in from around the globe. The other artifacts were awakening, responding to the first signal. Satellites detected massive energy disturbances at each location, growing stronger by the minute. "Dr. Patel," Naomi said, her voice steady despite the chaos, "I think I know what these symbols mean. They're not just a language. They're equations, physics we've never imagined." Raj checked his latest readings and felt his scientific worldview crumbling. The mathematics underlying reality itself seemed to be shifting, responding to the artifact's influence. Basic constants, the speed of light, atomic forces, gravity, were fluctuating in ways that should have torn the universe apart. "We need to evacuate," Rodriguez began, but her words were cut short by a deafening hum that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The artifact's glow had become blinding, its surface now a swirling vortex of light and symbol. Through the pain and confusion, Naomi realized something that chilled her more than the Arctic wind. The artifact wasn't just transmitting data, it was rewriting the fundamental rules of reality. And humanity's understanding of science, of existence itself, was about to change forever. As if responding to her realization, The artifact released a pulse of energy that shattered every window in the research station. In that moment, as glass rained down and alarms screamed, Naomi knew they had passed a point of no return. Whatever cosmic door they had unlocked, it was now wide open. And something was coming through. Professor Julian Reed stepped out of his helicopter onto the Antarctic ice, his weathered face tightening at the familiar bite of polar wind. As the world's leading expert in extinct civilizations, he'd been summoned from his dig in Peru the moment the artifacts began awakening. The scene before him mirrored reports from Greenland, research stations transformed into military outposts, equipment failing in impossible ways, and at the center of it all, another pulsing crystal changing the very nature of reality. "Professor," Dr. Winter's voice crackled through his headset. "Are you receiving our feed?" "Perfectly," he replied, watching holographic data stream through his augmented lenses. "The patterns match petroglyphs I found on every continent. We didn't understand their significance until now." The Antarctic artifact floated in its containment field, identical to its Arctic sibling, yet somehow different, like a twin speaking in a slightly different dialect. Julian had spent decades studying ancient writings that spoke of world engines and reality anchors, dismissing them as myths. Now those myths floated before him, very real and very active. Back in Greenland, Naomi and Raj worked frantically to decode the streams of data pouring from their artifact. The symbols had evolved, becoming more complex, more urgent. Harrison's nose had started bleeding an hour ago, and now he sat in medical isolation, muttering equations that defied known mathematics. "The artifacts aren't just communicating," Raj announced, his voice tight with exhaustion and wonder. "They're reconstructing something, a network that existed before human civilization." Commander Rodriguez paced the command center, coordinating with military units worldwide. "We've lost contact with 3 submarines near the Siberian artifact. Last transmission reported spatial distortions." She turned to Naomi. "Whatever these things are doing, they're affecting our world in ways we can't control." Julian's voice cut through the static. "I think I know what they're rebuilding. Every ancient text I studied, from the Sumerians to the Maya, speaks of a time when reality was different, more fluid. They describe beings who could shape space and time like clay. The artifacts pulsed in unison, their energy signatures harmonizing across continents. In that moment, Naomi felt something shift in her consciousness, a connection not just to the devices, but to time itself. She saw history unfolding backward, watched civilizations rise and fall, and glimpsed beings of pure energy walking among primitive humans, teaching them secrets now lost to time. "They weren't gods," she whispered. "They were guardians, and they left these artifacts as a failsafe." Raj's instruments screamed as reality buckled around them. The air itself seemed to crystallize, forming patterns that echoed the artifact's symbols. "The network is almost complete. Whatever these guardians were protecting us from, I think it's about to reach us." In Antarctica, Julian watched in awe as the ice beneath his feet became transparent, revealing vast geometric structures buried miles below. These aren't just individual artifacts, he realized. They're nodes in a planetary defense system. The ancients knew something was coming, something that could only be stopped by rewriting the laws of physics themselves. The truth hit Naomi with terrible clarity. Humanity had spent centuries advancing technology, reaching for the stars, never realizing they were also drawing the attention of something that existed beyond normal space and time. The Guardians had hidden their artifacts in the ice, waiting for humans to reach a level of understanding where they could comprehend the true nature of the threat. Commander Rodriguez received reports of massive gravitational anomalies appearing worldwide. Ships vanished into suddenly appearing whirlpools. The sky above major cities rippled like heat waves, revealing glimpses of impossible geometries. "We need to make a decision," she announced grimly. "The artifacts are offering us a choice. I can feel it in my head. We all can. They're showing us how to complete the network, but the cost. The cost is everything we think we know about reality, Raj finished. Our understanding of physics, of cause and effect, it would all become obsolete. We'd have to relearn how the universe works from scratch. Julian's voice crackled through the comm system. The alternative is worse. The ancient texts all agree. What's coming through would make reality itself unravel. Humanity wouldn't just die. We'd never have existed at all. The artifact's pulse reached a fever pitch. Through their shared connection, Naomi felt millions of minds worldwide experiencing the same visions, the same terrible choice. The Guardians had left humanity a legacy, a way to defend itself, but using it would change everything. As the sky above them tore open like paper, revealing what waited beyond, Naomi knew they were out of time. The next few moments would determine not just humanity's future, but whether humanity would have a future at all. The artifacts hummed in anticipation, waiting for a decision that would reshape the very foundations of existence. The choice. Reality trembled like a soap bubble about to burst. Through the torn fabric of space-time, shapes moved the human minds couldn't properly process, geometric nightmares that existed in more dimensions than our universe allowed. The artifacts network hummed across the planet, waiting for humanity's decision. Dr. Winters stood at the center of the Greenland facility, blood trickling from her nose, her mind connected to millions through the artifact's influence. Professor Reed's voice cut through the chaos from Antarctica. The Guardians knew this moment would come. They left us the tools, but the choice must be ours. Raj's instruments had stopped giving readings entirely. Physics itself was becoming uncertain. Whatever's coming through those tears, it's changing the fundamental constants of our universe. We have minutes, maybe less. Commander Rodriguez coordinated with military commands worldwide, but conventional weapons meant nothing against an enemy that existed outside normal spacetime. Dr. Winters, we need a decision now. Naomi closed her eyes, feeling the weight of humanity's future pressing against her consciousness. Through the artifacts network, she could sense every human mind on Earth experiencing the same visions, the Guardians' memories, their knowledge, their desperate plan to preserve reality itself. The artifacts aren't just tools, she realized. They're templates. The Guardians didn't just leave us weapons. They left us a way to evolve. Harrison, still in medical isolation, suddenly sat up, his eyes glowing with the same light as the artifacts. The equation completes itself, he said, his voice overlapping with others speaking the same words worldwide. Humanity is the final variable. The decision crystallized in Naomi's mind. There was only one way forward, but the price would be beyond imagination. Raj, she called, help me initiate the sequence. Professor Reed, begin your activation. Commander, get ready for everything to change. As the team worked, reality itself held its breath. The thing from beyond clawed at the edges of existence, its presence threatening to unravel the very laws that held the universe together. But humanity had one advantage it didn't expect. They were still primitive enough to adapt, to change, to become something new. Part 5. Transformation. The activation sequence began with a sound that existed in no known spectrum, a chord that resonated with the fundamental frequency of spacetime itself. The artifact's network lit up like a web of stars across the planet's surface, each node pulsing in perfect harmony. Naomi felt it first, a change so profound it defied description. Human consciousness expanded, touched by the same energy that had empowered the Guardians eons ago. Knowledge flooded through the network, how to bend space, how to step sideways through time, how to rewrite the laws of physics through pure will. It's not just changing us, Raj gasped, watching his own hands become translucent, then solid again. It's changing everything. The entire universe is being rewritten to accommodate our evolution. The entity from beyond fought back, its impossible geometries trying to impose their own version of reality. But humanity, guided by the Guardian's legacy, had become something it couldn't comprehend. A species that could exist in multiple states of reality simultaneously, that could think in 5 dimensions as easily as 3. Professor Reed, his consciousness now spanning centuries at once, understood at last. The Guardians weren't protecting us from invasion. He transmitted through thoughts that rippled across space-time. They were protecting reality itself until we could take their place. Commander Rodriguez, her military training somehow adapting to abilities that defied natural law, coordinated humanity's first unified defense of existence itself. Across the planet, millions of newly awakened minds joined together, using the artifact's power to stitch reality back together. The battle for existence lasted both an eternity and an instant. Time became meaningless as humanity, transformed by the Guardian's gift, pushed back against the void. The entity, faced with a species it had assumed would be easy prey, found itself confronted by beings who could match its power and exceed it through sheer adaptability. In the end, it wasn't a single decisive blow that won the day, but humanity's unique ability to change, to grow, to become something new while remaining fundamentally themselves. The tiers in reality sealed themselves, the impossible geometries retreated, and a new kind of existence settled into place. Naomi stood in the transformed research station, her consciousness simultaneously aware of both her immediate surroundings and the vast network of human minds now spanning the globe. The artifacts, their purpose fulfilled, had become part of humanity's new nature, tools no longer needed by a species that had become what they once protected. "What happens now?" Harrison asked, his words carrying both sound and thought. Naomi smiled, watching the northern lights dance with new colors that hadn't existed in the old reality. "We learn. We grow. We become what we were always meant to be." Raj, analyzing data that now wrote itself in 4-dimensional patterns through the air, nodded. The Guardians knew we had this potential. That's why they chose Earth, chose humanity. Not because we were special, but because we could become special. Professor Reed, his consciousness drifting through layers of history that had both happened and hadn't, understood the poetry of it all. We were their greatest experiment, a species that could adapt to become reality's new guardians. Commander Rodriguez, coordinating with a global network of minds that now spanned dimensions as easily as continents, allowed herself a small smile. Well, I'd say the experiment was a success. As the transformed Earth spun through space that now held infinite new possibilities, Naomi looked up at stars that seemed both closer and more mysterious than ever before. The entity had been driven back, reality was safe, but this wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. Humanity had taken its first steps into a larger existence, and the real adventure was just beginning. The artifact's light faded for the last time, their purpose fulfilled. But across the planet, in the minds and hearts of every human being, a new light burned, the light of guardians, of protectors, of a species that had finally grown into its true potential. The future, with all its infinite possibilities, awaited.